Greetings, traveler.
Hey everyone, we've got a big balance patch, lots of changes. Let's dive right in. Alright, so our first change is that Hollow Rover is coming back. Now, it'll be a 4-drop instead of a 6-drop, that is a huge buff, but we also see that there is no Divine Shield on this one. Now, last time they brought Hollow Rover back, they did bring it back without shield first, and then they had to shield it afterwards because it kind of just sucked. Unfortunately. Well, the fact that it's a 4-drop now, it's definitely a good 4-drop, right? Don't get me wrong. Getting something that makes a magnetic every turn, that's like Scrap Scraper. Scrap Scraper's a 5-drop, so this is good, right? This is not a bad card. Now, you can't get the Wind Fury magnetic either, so that is a bit of a bummer. I think that would be a nice little package, right, to bring the Wind Fury magnetic back as well. But you can reborn this, and it's relatively early. It can also make its own reborn by attacking and generating it. You can triple into this as early as, like turn 5, maybe turn 4 if you're super early and you're rich like Snake Eyes. So great early card. Anything that generates economy is nice, and it also generates a little bit of tempo for itself because you can just put the magnetics on there. So overall, a step in the right direction, a nice little help to push you into the mech archetype. Speaking of mechs, here we got Poltron, although it's mainly a beast, not really a mech. It's been played in the beast type. It's back, but now with Avenge 5, so that is much slower. I don't think it fully kills off Stegodon, but you will feel this. But it was necessary, because right now, when people played Stegodon, it got, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of damage. So, very nasty. The problem is when it's golden, it attacks twice. So what people did was they prepped a pivot where they had like a golden Poltron in their hand or something. And then the rest of the Stegodon comp is super cheap, right? Because, like, what do you play? Stegodon, it's a 4-drop. You put eyes on it, it's golden. And then the rest is just like Mana Saber or the rat, the sewer rat thing. So very cheap. Like, you don't need like golden Tidus, golden brand or anything. It's just the Poltron. So what people did was they just generated Poltron and then pivoted into it. Now, I will definitely be trying this myself, but we're going to see that Stegodon also received a nerf. So those two things combined are definitely going to hit it quite hard. All right. Here, let me get to this one first. Stegodon. So right now the rally was 4 attack. It's going to go down to 3. So that combined with the Poltron going to Avenge 5, that is definitely a heavy hit. It's hard to call just if it's going to be playable or not, just because it does have no cap, right? It just keeps doubling and doubling and doubling, and that that gets quite big. So I think if you have a golden Poltron in the back, it's still going to be strong, just because the rat is so good, the sewer lord, because you can reborn that, and if you don't have Tidus on your board, the chance that it actually reborns is relatively high. With Tidus, you just spawn too many rats, so there's no room for the reborn. But when that thing reborns, it's so annoying. So it's still going to be a bit of an RNG fight, where whether you can kill the Poltrons or not. And then we have another Quillbore card coming back. So this card saw some brief play. It's called Dreaming Thornweaver. It was Avenge 4, now it's Avenge 3, so it's a huge buff. Your blood gems give an extra +1 health this game. So similar to Piper, you can now farm health in the combat, and 3 or 4 is a huge difference, right? Same as like 5 or 4 is also a big difference. You really feel that. Avenge 3 can proc twice per fight relatively easily, right? If you have that little 2-drop Quillbore that spawns the taunts, I can't remember the name right now, but it's actually quite good with Bristlebark too, especially now that you can reborn it with a reborn gem. Very nice at proccing this, right? 2 of those is basically, one of those is a proc. So if you have 2 of those on the board, you're almost like guaranteed to get double proc, because they also spawn taunts, so it's very safe. Another big advantage here is that you get to keep the health this time, whereas before it would go from attack to health to attack to health. So I would much rather spam health, because I can have a Piper for a few attack points. And generally a few attack points early on and then a bunch of health is better, just because you can then start value trading. Whereas if you have a ton of damage, you can trade 1 for 1, but you're not going to value trade. And if you have a limited amount of gems that you can assign, it's generally better to just have high health so you can value trade. Now later on, if you want to play like full Bristle Pack and Vine Weaver and stuff, attack is better, because then you spawn those little taunt tokens and you want to buff them. But at this stage of the game, I prefer it to not switch to attack. All right, Twisted Wrathguard goes from a 5 to a 6. That is a massive nerf, but definitely deserved. Right now, when you play demons, what essentially happens is you go to 5, you get one of these Twisted Wrathguards, and then you just figure it out, because selling cards makes you stronger, and most boards can sell cards. So the comp just naturally fleshes itself out, where you get Bran and then you just start cycling economy stuff, and then you spawn fodders, you get bigger, you stop losing fights because you get tempo for free because you're just selling whatever stuff that you were going to sell already, and then you get a triple into the Conqueror, which then buffs your board, or you play Rylak with the Void Pup trainer, or you just play a couple Felementals even with a Bran. Like, it's really just like you get Twisted Wrathguard and Bran and you're online. So it's just very fast, very cheap. Like, you just go to 5 and very often you just end up in Demons. And that also made the meta less fun, because when Demons were in, you know, I basically just could say, well, there's a high chance of playing Demons this game. So it's always a bit nicer if you don't have that feeling like, yeah, everything's strong, it could happen. So yeah, this makes it harder to go, because now you have Twisted Wrathguard and Conqueror on 6. So that is much harder to get online than before. Felbat goes from 6 to 5. Yeah, I mean, it's still not great. Felbat, the problem with Felbat is that it just eats one shop. And compare that to Twisted Wrathguard and you have Bran, you might eat 10 shops in one turn, right? It's like literally like 10 times better than the Felbat. So it doesn't make sense that one is a 5 and the other is a 6. Now, the issue here is that it requires skill, experience, APM, right, to be able to eat those 10 shops in one turn. So it's not that, you know, Felbat is basically at its worst at the highest levels of play. It's obviously the lobbies that I'm seeing and I get used to. But the fewer shops I would say that people start eating with Twisted Wrathguard, the better a Felbat becomes in comparison. Now, the exception is if you have Glowing Gauntlet, which gives you an infinite shop, then, you know, you could add a Drakari, you can add more Felbat, and now you're just eating more things end of turn and becomes a lot better. So especially in the Time Warp meta, we had end of turn Shadow Dancer. So that was brilliant, because then you had end of turn Shadow Dancer with Drakari, with Felbat, and then you had that little Time Warp thingy majiggy that made your shop infinite as well. So in the past few metas, there has been an opportunity to go infinite shop Felbat, which is fun, right? But it's so niche, it just doesn't happen very often. The stars really need to align for you to pull that off. So anyways, deserved. Good on you, Felbat. Good on you. Alarmist goes from a 1-1 to a 2-2. Cool. Yeah, this thing was like buyable, especially if you were Lich King and you could reborn it, but you were never truly happy about it just because it's a little sketch, a little scary. You gotta take a lot of damage, so 2-2 helps quite a bit. That's like almost a regular 2-drop in some cases, right? With a good effect, I mean, like a Prophet, for instance, is a 2-3, so it starts to become like acceptable. It's basically minions that do something else than just have stats. Ooh, this one's a big one. Metallic Hunter. Yeah, they're really just saying like, you don't like mech? Play mech. Play mech. Play mech. I like that. Yeah, that's twice the stats. That's good. That makes this much better to buy. So yeah, happy. And I do like that they do that, right? After some time in the season, they just say like, okay, what would it take? What would it take for you to play this? I love that approach, because there is a number of stats, there is a number of things that you can give me in return for me to start playing something. This is a good example. It's like, oh, would you play a 4-2 that gives you a pointy arrow if you fight? It's like, yeah, I'll do that. I'll take that. That's fine. Same thing here, Marquee Ticker. So this was actually a good card back in the day, but obviously the meta changed, power creep happens, and getting a random tavern spell and having to play a 1-5 body just wasn't that exciting. A 3-7 body on the other hand, that can kill another card. So usually the way you have to think about these stat lines is whenever you buy these really poorly statted minions, right? So we had a 1-5 over here, we had a 1-1 over here. You have to ask yourself, how much health am I willing to lose for this effect? Because that's the question you start. That's what it essentially boils down to. Because if you put things on your board that aren't good at combat and your opponent has things on the board that are good at combat, they're going to win. They're going to deal damage to you. So when you have that idea, you have that question like, how much health am I willing to pay? Quite often the answer is none. I do not want to pay health. I want to at least not guarantee take damage. You know, I have a fighting chance and I want to get some value. That's why cards like Bigwig are so good, because you get a reasonable stat line, you get bounties, which are really good spells. You're gonna get either gold, you're gonna get a minion, or you're gonna get a lot of tempo, right? AoE buff, or plus 6/6 on the leftmost. So that's a great example of something that will generate value and is okay tempo. Marquee Ticker was like, well, it's questionable. You don't know what you're gonna get, right? You might get a pointy arrow end of turn, and then you bought a 1-5 that you had to wait one turn with to make it a 5-5. That's not a great investment for a 4-drop. So long story short, yes, good. We like it. More number good. Zarina, another more number good. It goes from 3 attack to 4. Now, every time they do this, it sort of breaks something where it gets into the like, oh, that's such a stupid amount of tempo, because you're rarely going to win lobbies with Zarina. It happens, right? I have done it. It's not like it can't happen, but it just doesn't scale as nicely as some of the other things. And let me explain why that is. When you have something like demons, what I like to call that is you can scale the scaling. Same thing with pirates, you can get more spell power and now the bounties do more stuff. With demons, you can make the shop bigger, and now every time you eat something, you get more scaling. Zarina, it's like you get 4 attack, and 5 turns later, you still get 4 attack, right? So the scaling remains the same. You can add more Zarinas, but you're not getting more scaling per Zarina. And that is the issue, where if you have a strategy like that, it is very hard to win a lobby when someone else can scale their scaling. Now, I don't think that is something that has to be in every single type. I think it's okay to have tempo types in there, and mech is a great example of that. In a lot of metas, mech is sort of just the tempo enforcer that says, hey, I'm going to be really strong in the mid game, and if you can't handle it, you're going to go into the bottom 4. And then the mech player very often gets into the top 4 and then loses to the person that did scale the scaling and took a little bit more of a risk, because if you get like 2 Zarinas early and you spam tavern spells, very low risk. Like the chance that you're going to lose MMR in a game like that, very low. Like it's very likely to be top 4, just not super likely to win. And I think that's okay. That's a bit of a trade-off you make where you say, I'm just going to play tempo this game. I'm going to try to get my plus 20 MMR and get out of here. And that's perfectly fine. So now that it's 4 attack, it makes it even more likely that when you run into a mech board in the mid game, you're going to take 15 because it's so hard to have enough health to deal with this. You're going to need to have Blaster on your board almost in the mid game. Like let's say turn 8, turn 9, if someone had an early Zarina. If you don't have a Blaster, you'd probably take a 15 damage. Moonsteel receives another buff. So you get 6/6s, and the way Hearthstone generally works is when they say improve this, it is by a jump of what the original amount is. So I'm assuming here that we're going to go from 6 to 12, 18, and so on. So that is a very significant improvement. I think it's still going to struggle to be first place material for the same reason, where you are scaling your scaling, but it's also relatively slow compared to elementals who just go crazy with arcane absorption, or demons still if you get them online. There's other strategies. So overall, great buff though, and I love what they're doing for mechs here, and honestly I will just have to try it, because at some point, like I said before, if you just increase the number enough, it is going to work. So I might be wrong here, right? Maybe I'm just like, oh, you know what, this is just enough, I'm winning lobbies with mechs now. So very possible. I will have to try it out. My gut feeling is that, you know, I won't hate getting this early, but I would still like to pivot out of it and move into something else. Dream counter is +5/+5. Jesus. Yeah, I do love that, man. They don't have reservations around that. They're just like, hey, you know, what will it take? You know, even if it starts to look a little silly, like you get 5/5 per Murloc played. This is now crazy tempo, right? If you buy a Tad, that's +10/+10 for 1 gold, effectively. And there's a chance that one of the Murlocs that you generate is actually useful, so then you get to keep that too. That's cool. You know, sometimes you go to tier 4 early and you just have a shop that is like Bream counter plus Tad, and I just like buy both of those and I just put the Bream counter on the board. I'm just like, hey, now I'm winning the fight or the next 2 fights. So you could do it for that reason. You could play it like that too. But if you have the early Dire Muck to summon this, then you're just like not losing for a while, which is really good. And then you can still end up in hand lock, because they're also buffing Merglin Burglar. Same thing here. It's like, hey, let's just make it 5/5. Let's see what happens. So yeah, okay. They brought Coral back too, right? Coral, a few patches ago, we have Coral back. This looks like I will pick it up more often now, combined with the demon nerf, right? I think if demons weren't nerfed, then it's still like, okay, I get 5/5, who cares? Demons are like 7,000 on the board. This is never going to be 7,000, but still, it's faster. What I like about Battlegrounds is if you are lucky and you get pushed into a certain direction, you shouldn't feel bad about like, ugh, yeah, I high rolled Murlocs, but Murlocs suck, right? So I never really want to have that feeling, because then it's not fun, right? Like, yay, you got lucky, but not really. You want to get out of that as fast as you can. So they don't have to be the best type. I just need to have a chance, right? So, and it feels like this bumps it into I have a chance territory, which is great. I do really appreciate that. So yeah, absolutely love it. Begurgle, same philosophy here. What will it take? Let's just make it +4/+4. This used to be 2/2 as a 5-drop, right? Now it's a 4-drop. It goes from 3 back to 4. Now it's 4/4 as a 4-drop. And it also buffs your hands, which is another buff. So I'm just an old man staring at power creep, being like, back in my day, we got +2/+2 McGurgles, and we liked it. Yeah, I love it. Let's go. Let's go, Murlocs. All right, Buccaneer, +3/+3. Yeah, this is already seeing some play. I got a high roll it a bit. You got to be in sort of that APM mode where you have a brand, you have a lot of stuff to do. You maybe Rogers, maybe a privateer to play more bounties, and then obviously Drukhari. But yeah, this is a very, very significant buff. So that's great. Same thing with pirates, honestly. Like playing pure pirate, it's not good enough. So when they make changes like this, it starts to become good enough. Because it's not great if you high roll something and like, okay, I high rolled something. Now how can I get out of that high roll and into demons as fast as possible? Roger is going back to 9 gold. That's great. That's great. That's fun. I don't know if Rogers was ever 8 gold, but I do know that she was nerfed in the past. So I don't know if it was originally 9 and then went to 10, or if it was like 8, 9, and then down 10 and then back to 9. Either way, you feel that. You know, you might think like, 10 or 9, you don't feel it. Last time it went from 9 to 10, I felt that. Like so often I was just like a bounty off. And over the course of a game, just add it up, right? How many more bounties you're going to get? Like how much gold do you spend on an average APM turn? And then, you know, look at all of that and say, okay, what would happen if I would need 1 extra gold every time, right? It really adds up. It's a lot fewer bounties if you got to pay 1 extra gold. So yeah, big buff here. Love to see it. Oh, I saw this already, but still, I can't believe they're really doing this thing like number up, you will play off meta stuff. And I love it. I'm you know, this is the thing, like I gotta play this now, right? So Drust goes from +2/1 to 2/2. Okay, whatever. Nice to have. But your golden ones are 6/6 instead of 4/2. That's like massive buff, right? Like holy, that's basically double, right? You go from 6 stat points to 12 stat points. The distribution is not exactly double, but it is basically double. So you could argue this is even better than double because you get a little bit more of the health and they already had enough damage. So yeah, I mean, just imagine now you have a golden Drust, you get a pirate, you get +12/+12 to all your golden pirates. It's not hard to golden stuff, right? Goldening a cleave when you're playing APM pirates, you can buy eyes, right? You got that pirate money, right? You can just buy eyes, put the eyes on the cleave and be like, there you go, buddy, you golden now. So yeah, I don't think well, you might actually chase Drust. What I was gonna say is I don't think you're gonna chase Drust, but if you just get it, you're happy to play it. Whereas now it's literally just, oh, I have Drust on my board, I'll just play him, I'll play like 2 blue bounties and then I'm selling. That's how the turn happens now. But 6/6 on golden ones, that is significant, right? Now again, you're not necessarily scaling, you're scaling, so long-term spell power scaling is better. But this might just hit hard enough, fast enough that you don't care, right? Because you have so much money, it is very possible to end up with double golden Drust. And now we're doing like 24/24 on all your golden pirates every time you get a pirate. And if you have a golden privateer and you open a blue bounty, that's 3 pirates instantly. That's a lot of buffs. Not to mention, you can just start buying pirates, right? There's definitely Gambler, any kind of economy pirate like the Battlecry guy that makes bounties. So I like it. Let's see where this goes. Let's see what kind of impact it has. But I've already got lots of strategies where I say like, hey, I just got to play that now, right? I got to play my mech, I got to play my hand, buff Murloc, and now we can just play golden pirates as well. Drustfallen Butcher gets a massive buff here as well, going from Avenge 4 to Avenge 3. Butchering works with spell power and Belinda. That's something that I missed originally. I don't think undead are that great on average, but their high rolls are really nice. So what I mean with that is it's still a little tricky to set up because you got to get the spell power, you got to get the Belinda, you got to have the butchering generation. While you're doing that, you also need to have enough tokens on your board to not die. So very often it results in dying where, you know, it's kind of like Carapace, where Carapace was also kind of tricky where you needed to get the Geist and then you also need to get the Titus and then you also needed to get the Carapace, but you also needed to have tokens on your board to take advantage of the Carapace. And it's almost always multiple turns that it takes to get your setup, which means that you're just losing while you don't have the setup. And that was kind of happening to me too when I was doing undead here. But Avenge 3 speeds it up a lot because that means you're just going to get more butcherings. So you're going to get bigger faster. And you can also use that to get permanent buffs. There's this 4-drop, kind of like a Nubarak, but not quite a Nubarak, where if you kill it off during the combat, You get +2, but during the tavern you get 4. So that is nice. You can use butchering on a caretaker, and then if you have 3 empty board slots, that will triple. So yeah, I like it. Really, really nice patch so far. Really addressing a lot of the weaker types and giving them massive buffs. Nala goes from 3-2 to 4-3. I mean, that is basically Time Warp Nala, right? Time Warp Nala works with gems and coins, or I guess coins are basically tavern spells these days, but still massive buff. Now, do I think you're gonna play Nala for the long run? I don't think so. Again, suffers from that problem of not scaling the scaling. It's also quite restrictive, right? Because you have to go or 3 or 4 different types. You're generally still gonna need Bran for money and spell generation, so then you need to run like Nala, Bran, flex slots. That means you can run only 4 types at most. It's still awkward as a late game thing, but totally fine in the mid game. And like I mentioned before, I think it's okay. I don't think every single strategy should be able to win the lobby, because that'll make designing also like very restrictive, right? If you have to say, well, every single strategy needs to be able to consistently win lobbies. That means, you know, it's kind of nice to have stuff like, well, these guys are stronger in the early game, these guys are stronger in the mid game, these guys are your greedy things that are weaker early but stronger late. So I think it's perfectly fine, and Nala fits into that bucket of huge mid-game power, where if you have a spell generation and you pop a Nala on the board on, let's say, turn 8, right? That's like rough prime Nala territory. Turn 8, you put a Nala on your board, you probably win your next 2 fights, unless, you know, somebody disgustingly high rolled. If you pop some spells with a Nala on your board, you're probably going to be okay. So I think that's fine. Ooh, then we got bounty buffs too. Bounties are going to go buff 4 minions now. Huge buffs, so that's all of them, right? Yep. Well, all of them. Green and blue. Green and red. Yeah, all of them. So yeah, I mean, not much more to say here, right? That is a nice pyro buff. Queen's Command gets nerfed again. Goes from 3-3 to 2-3 to 2-2 now. The tricky thing here is that you can just trigger it so many times because it is a battle cry and a death rattle. So you can use Macaw next to Rylak, but you can also have Macaw just next to Queen's Command, right next to the Ruthless Queen's Guard. Then you can have your Titus, the double prockets. If you're using a Rylak, you can also use Bran to enhance the battle cry of Queen's Guard, because the Rylak will trigger the battle cry, which means it double dips. You get both your Titus and your Bran buffs. I think that is a justified nerf. Ruthless Queen's Guard kind of had it all, where the moment you got her, you were probably not going to lose fights. And because her scaling goes off spell power, you can scale your scaling. So very, you know, you don't get that much bigger during the tavern phase, but during the combat phase where you just trigger the battle cry or the death rattle over and over and over again, yeah, you get very large. And you can keep up with other boards because you can scale spell power with Meditative or Hellfire Conjurer. So I think that's a justified nerf. And then we have some trinket changes as well. These trinkets are out. The only one that I don't get immediately is Skipper Portraits, but I think that might be an outlier / Syndragosa or Gallywix were getting these sometimes, and maybe they don't want to have this restriction in again, because when they had the Time Warp meta, Syndragosa or Gallywix or Millhouse couldn't get that, simply because, you know, Gallywix, it goes without saying, you love just cycling stuff on Gallywix. And Syndragosa and Millhouse only pay 1 gold effectively for a minion. So that means every time you buy a 2-drop with Skipper Portrait, it's free. So every 2-drop's free. And then if you get the Murloc or the Pirate that generates economy, then it gets really stupid. The other ones I can totally get. They suck and they're not fun to play with. So maybe Battlecruiser Portraits, like, that's a novel one where you could play that with Zarek, right, and copy it. You could play it as Raynor and get a second Battlecruiser. But other than that, it's just not a very fun one to get. So yeah, I do like whenever they do this, clean it up a little bit, look at what are all the lowest pick rates on the trinkets and just get them out of here. It's just more fun. You get to play with more good trinkets. Then these greater trinkets have been removed. Same deal here. I think I agree with pretty much all of these. Radio Star out. I think now that they fixed it with Grave Robber, it could probably stay, but I don't know if it was either just being abused with Aviator summoning the minions in combat, or if it's just maybe, I don't know. I'm gonna be honest. I don't know exactly why this was removed, because the trinkets that get removed are like low pick rate, low fun rate, and like Radio Star feels pretty high fun rate. So anyways, we'll figure that out later. Peace Bloom, after the buff where it triggers on the first 3, I actually kind of like this one. I think it was okay. It was a very cheap trinket. You get to buy the first 3 ones for free, but I can see that it's still at pretty low pick rate. It is more fun to pick other ones, so fair. And then these ones are out as well. Dragonwing Glider and Turbocharged Drill. Yeah, I mean, I basically never took these. So cool. Yep. Let's get him out of here. Then Egg of the End Times gets nerfed. You now get 1 egg, and then at the start of every 2 turns, you repeat it. Now you might say, well, isn't that really a buff? Because over the course of the entire game, you're getting more. Front loading is everything in this game, right? If you could tell me like, hey, I'm going to give you 1 brand on turn 1, or I'm going to give you 2 brands on, you know, turn 10 to be like, give me the turn 1 to turn 1. Because like just getting it early will just snowball like crazy. And same thing here, getting 2 tier 6s early on is way better than getting like 3 spread out over the course of the game. So absolutely a nerf. You definitely feel that. But this thing was too good, right? It was too strong, where it's pretty toxic as well, where you run into someone who just had the egg popped. It's like, oh, this guy has 2 tier 6 dragons. Smiley face. I guess I'm taking 15 damage or 10 damage or whatever. Smiley face. So yeah, very justified nerf. And I think it's well handled, where this is not unpickable now, but it's just not as toxic as before. Chromatic Tear nerfed in the same way, although with this one, I will have to think about it for a second. So here you're getting 5 Chroma Drakes immediately, which was crazy front loading, so much tempo. Now you're getting 2 Chroma Drakes, and at the start of the turn repeated. It doesn't make it a bad trinket all of a sudden, but I think it also just shows how broken the first one was. 5 Chroma Drakes all at once means that you can very, very often also just power level. So I generally went, well, not generally, but quite often I went to tier 4 on turn 5, which means that on turn 6, when the trinket pops, I'm already on tier 4. Now, when I get Chromatic Tear, quite often I was able to level tier 5, because you get like 5 things in your hand, and then you sell things off your board because you need to make space anyway, and all of a sudden I'm on tier 5 on turn 6, and that's like crazy power level. That's not something you're going to be able to do as often, so that's already quite a big hit. But getting 2 Chroma Drakes start of the turn, you compare that to Compass, right? Compass is start of turn, you get a random minion from your type of the Compass, and Compass is fine. This is 2, right? So, and it's Chroma Drakes, so they have useful battle cry effects. That's a great trinket, right? That's a strong lesser trinket, because now next turn you already have 4 out of 5, and after that it's pure upside. So I think I would still prefer everything at the beginning front loaded, just because it allows you to do that shenanigan of like, oh, I'm on tier 5 super early, which means I have my brand maybe a turn earlier than other people, and that just snowballs out of control. But this is by no means a bad trinket. Like, very, very good, especially because you can make the comparison with Compass, right? Compass is fine. Compass gives you 1, this gives you 2. What the hell? Just goes to show how good the original one was. All right, then Copper Coil goes from 1/1 to 2/1. Yep, that's definitely going to help a lot with Hollow Rover, right? Hollow Rover is a way to magnetize a lot, and now you're going to keep buffing and buffing and buffing, so you can get a big Hollow Rover, and after that you can use it to make big Deflectobots. Yeah, with the introduction of Hollow Rover, this is probably going to be quite a bit better now. And they can even add Scrap Scraper with Reborn later on to get a full hand of magnetics every fight. Then we have Nomi Sticker going from 2/1 to 2/2. I don't really care, unfortunately, for Nomi. Turn 6 is just too early, man. I do not want to decide my whole game on turn 6. Stuff like, for instance, the Chroma Drake trinket is so much better because, yeah, you're getting dragons every turn. You might say, well, aren't you kind of picking your direction? That's 2 gold per turn. I can use that for anything, right? I can play Elementals later on. I can play Murlocs later on. I don't need to play this. Sure, if I happen to end up in Caligos, it's even better because then I get 2 battle cries every turn. But, you know, then I'm playing Caligos, which is okay, honestly, with this thing. But there's no such advantage here, right? It's like, well, I start buffing the Tavern on turn 6. So if I'm not going to end up in Elemental there, that's largely wasted, right? Sometimes maybe I'm going to get some cross-type value, like a demon eating an Elemental that's big or something. But you know, this is very, very niche. So for the most part, if you don't end up in Elemental, this is all wasted. I don't love these lesser trinkets that just push you super hard into a direction, which is what the Nomi sticker does. Whew. Oh my god, bro. Yeah, they're really going after this like buff. We will make you play it. Yeah, so +4/+4 after you play a card. Now you can have 1 dragon on your board, and you can just play a bunch of blood gems, and those count as cards. Coins are cards. Basically, I think even spellcrafts are cards, I believe, for this too. So it's everything. So many cards that are being played. And 4/4, like, that's so much tempo. So do you want to take this ideally? No, because ideally you are strong enough to win your fights already, and then you can just take a value trinket and you can leverage that to level faster and build your comp faster. However, we all know that sometimes things don't go according to plan in the early game, and that's part of the game. Part of the game is like, hey, you got some high rolls, you get some low rolls, you got some normal games. If you are struggling to win your fights, this is absolutely a good pick, especially if you already have some cards in your hand, because it only costs 1 gold, so you're probably going to be able to level on the same turn. If you've got some cards in your hand, let's say stuff that you generated during the combat, especially blood gems, and you have a dragon on your board, which you should have because you were offered a glider, now you're going to start winning your fights, because 4/4 per card is like, you play 3 cards, it's +12/+12. That's so, you're just adding such a sheer high amount of stats to your board that you're very likely to start winning fights. So an excellent pick if you did not have a great start. Tiger Carving goes to 3 attack. Whenever a friendly minion takes damage, give a random friendly minion +2 attack permanently. I don't know. I never picked this. I'm gonna be honest. It just looks so unexciting to me. However, I think at one point I fought one person and I was kind of impressed, but that's, you know, that's kind of sad. Where it's like, I think I remember one opponent that had this and it was like, not horrible. Yeah, I don't know. It's maybe a bit of an outdated trinket. Maybe I just need some more experience with it. Maybe I should just try it, but yeah, it's just so much more exciting stuff most of the time. All right, Great Boar now gives you 3 blood gems and it gives you 2/1 instead of just 4 attack. Significantly better. Again, you probably don't want to take this, but sometimes, especially if you had an early Piper, you farmed some blood gems, maybe you tripled into a ritualist and you just really need a gem there, right? So it's going to be for very niche cases where you just say, oh man, it's just some gems would be so good here, and be like, oh, look at that. But if you don't have that, then, you know, just getting like +2/+1, the whole lesser trinket on, you know, just on your gems is not good enough. Now we have Blue Gill Flippers. So they go from 4/4 to 3/3, but you also buff the leftmost minion on your board. So it's really 6/6. That is not bad. However, it is super niche again, because the only time I really want to take this is if I already have a Dire Muck summoning something, or I have Scout. So realistically, you have to have Scout in your hands. That's really what we're talking about here. Because if you don't have something that is automatically getting summoned, it's such a mess to keep a something in the hand, play some tavern spells, put it on the board, next turn buy another thing, put it in your hand. But like, what are we doing, right? It's like so messy, so inefficient. So you pretty much need to have something in your hand that also gets summoned during the combat, which basically means you need Scout or you need Dire Muck. So if you have that, okay, I'm fine with this. And again, assuming you have some kind of tavern spell that you can generate relatively easily. So then we're talking like a pirate on your board with bounties. We're talking maybe like Murloc Holmes, which is generating a tavern spell because of the coin. So super niche. It's so hard to make this work. Lorewalker Scroll gets same treatment here. Let's just make it +4/+4 and see what happens. So very similar to the tempo from the Dragon Wing Glider. Now it's like whenever you cast a spell on a minion, give it 4/4. So casting a card is so much easier. However, casting a spell on a minion has some multipliers to it where you can cast twice with in combat Naga, you can cast twice with the hot air, I believe, the Quill Boar. So there are some ways to abuse this, but this is like fine tempo. Again, Dragon Wing's a bit better, but it does go on a random dragon. So if you have multiple dragons, you can't focus fire it as easily. You can put this on a cleave, you can put this on a shield. So has its advantages. So Pocket Cyclone gets nerfed. It casts Easterly Winds only once and then again at the start of each turn, but it does go from 5 gold to 3 gold. So I guess the early buff was a bit too much, where people were getting a little bit too much tempo here. I wasn't really a super big fan of this trinket. I was generally pretty happy to take money. This is actually someone on one of my YouTube videos even commented on this, where I took Elemental Portrait and were like, I can't believe it. How can you take Elemental Portrait when the Cyclone's so much better? And the point is that this isn't gonna make the difference in the late game, right? It's not like, oh, I've buffed the Tavern so much. What's gonna matter is, do you get your Brand? Do you get your Azerite? Because whatever the Cyclone is buffing, if I just have a Belinda and I generate Arcane Absorptions and I have Azerite, my shop's gonna have like, you know, 700, 800, 1,000 extra damage on it. So whatever this was buffing is negligible. So taking economy just makes it more likely that I get that board faster. So that's generally why all the top players value economy so much, because the way to think about this is every turn that you delay getting that board. You can basically look at what the end game board looks like from one of the top players' games. And then let's say it takes 2 turns longer to get there because you don't have economy. You take all the stats that they gained over the last 2 turns, and that's what it cost you. So it can be thousands of stats, right? So if you want to compare that, you could say like, oh, that trinket that you took on turn 6 cost you thousands of stats that game. Now, it's not perfect science. I get, don't destroy my my comparison here. But even like 1 turn, which I think is like very fair, right? Like not taking economy can absolutely set you back 1 turn and getting your board online. And that's sometimes still thousands of stats that you're losing. So I think that's a good way to like conceptualize it and say, okay, economy, again, if you can afford it. If you're dying, quite often you can't take economy. You need to take something like the Dragonwing Glider and stabilize. But if you can afford it, economy is just king, because it just helps you get to those boards faster. Jewelry box went from 3 gems to 2 gems to 1 gem, and I still haven't picked this a single time. I really feel like I've missed out on some epic Quillboar action, because I'm just looking at this like, where are these Quillboar boards that are so OP that this keeps getting nerfed? I don't know, man. It's so weird. Like, I haven't really seen other people pick it, like maybe once or twice. I've never picked it, and I'm just seeing this thing get nerfed into the ground. I'm just like, okay, what's going on? So yeah, sorry. I wish I had a better insight here, but apparently people are running around destroying people with jewelry boxes. All right. Lucky Tabby goes from 6 to 7. Sure. God damn it. Oh, they set me up. I can't believe it. Why would Blizzard do this? So, 1 additional cost to the Lucky Tabby here. Now, I have seen this in other streamers and when I was doing reviews and stuff, so I think this was just at a point where it generated enough economy, and we just talked about how good economy is. It's so nice to get your board online, and one of these beasts could be Reborn Scarab, Macaw, Tiger, Shark, Rylak, right? So it's not always just 1 gold. Sometimes it can really be a key beast for a lot of the compositions right now. There's a ton of compositions that use Rylak, Macaw, and then you want to get Reborn and stuff. So yeah, I can see why this was good. Ornate Clock gets a tiny nerf, goes from +3 gold to 2 gold, and I can see that. I've picked this thing once, and I was like, oh my god, I get +3 gold. Because I was like just ready to work with whatever I had that turn. Even though I read it, I read the buff, I did the patch review, I was like, oh wow, this is a great buff. And then when I picked it, I was still so pleasantly surprised. I was like, oh, 3 extra gold, that's crazy. I can level and I can buy a guy. Whoa, this works now, right? Because I was trying to figure out like, I guess I'll just like flow the gold or something, but no, this very, very nice. So I can see with +2 gold, I would still buy this. So I think it's a justified nerf. Oh, finally, here we go. Upstart Embers. Now, this wording matters a lot. After the tavern is refreshed, double the highest stats. And now it's after you refresh. So this means that when you freeze the tavern and you have a big minion in there, it will no longer double again. Because that's what everyone, was myself included, was doing. Once you had a way to generate arcane absorptions, you would just freeze and buy a small minion or a spell from the shop, which then forced part of the shop to refresh, which counts technically as refreshing the tavern, right? After the tavern is refreshed. So then embers would proc, and let's say you had a 100 in the shop, it would now be 200. And next turn it'd be 400, and then 800, and then 1,600, and so on and so on. So it just got so stupid big so fast. And then obviously, you would have like either Rylak plus the leyline on your board, or maybe like Macaw plus leyline, or even just like taunted leyline with Titus. I don't care, anything that just generates a few arcane absorptions per fight, because then you could just cast arcane absorption on your guy and you would have this minion in the shop that had thousands of stats, and you would just get huge, right? I think I had like an 80,000 damage cleave on my board last time I did this. So yeah, very justified nerf. That makes this thing so much worse though. They may have to adjust the price where 6 is too much. We'll see. But I was only really taking it for the abuse. Sorry guys. Hey, I gotta win my games too. I gotta get my YouTube videos. But now it's, yeah, I think they probably need to make it a bit cheaper, because I don't think I want to pay 6 gold for this now. All right, on we go. Lesser trinkets. Following trinkets will cost 1 gold less, right? So that's a buff to these. I would say that there's a few that stand out here. Demonic Tapestry, that one felt really good to me. However, it's tougher to play. You need to make a lot of decisions like, can I buy this? Should I roll? Do I need to get the free buy? So complicated trinkets and minions will generally just perform worse because there is more chance for player error. And when there's more chance for player error, those errors will generally be made, which that's normal. Whereas if you have something that is kind of foolproof, people are not going to miss efficiency on that. So whenever there's a chance for people to miss efficiency, then that's likely going to happen. I think that's what's happening here because Demonic Tapestry is a very strong trinket. If you have Rewinder on your board, this thing is amazing. So I can only assume that the stats are getting skewed because people can't use the full potential. I mean, I probably don't even get the full potential out of this thing. This thing's kind of complicated to play with. So that's likely what's going to happen here. It's Elemental Portraits. 5 gold was a bit much. Although, was it 6 before? I don't know. Either way, like, I was like, oh, are these already adjusted? Sorry. Either way, it did feel expensive when I picked it last time. And then Phylactery is something I actually quite like. So that thing also getting buffed is a little surprising, but whatever. I guess maybe it's part of just beasts not being strong or undead. Because I generally didn't really pick it to play beast or undead. I just picked it for tempo and some value, and then I didn't play it later on. So maybe that's a good example of like why they're buffing it. Like, hey, maybe you should play beast or undead. Eni sticker. Not even sure. I thought Eni sticker was out. Maybe it's back now. And then we have Bazaar sticker also getting a buff. Yeah, I mean, this is also pretty good if you have a Rewinder. Yeah, probably don't want to pick it that. I picked it without a Rewinder once. I was like, oh god, what did I do? This was so bad. So if you have a Rewinder, this is just good. So, and then for greater trinkets, we have Powder Keg getting changed. It now buffs 3 friendly pirates instead of 2. So that still works with Titus. Ooh, okay. I think you can still do Pirate Exodia with this then, right? Especially now that they buffed tier 5 pirates, that buffs end of turn. You could still get a very big leftmost minion and then still just go Macaw Titus. Okay, I have to pay more attention to that because before, Powder Keg wasn't really bought because you had the tier 6 pirate with the Death Rattle, which was basically a greater trinket, right? Where you summon a minion with the damage, a Scallywag. But now that they changed that to Rally and you can't abuse Titus and Macaw for just many Scallywags, this thing might actually be pretty good to buy in a beast pirate lobby. So I want to try messing around a bit with that. Agam sticker, man, this has really been the patch of we will just increase number until you guys play it. We have made it free. You do not pay any gold for this. At the end of the turn, you get 7 blood gems on every type. Please play Agam. It's like, okay, well, maybe I might now. Maybe I will. Probably not, but 7's a lot, man. Like, if you get a Drakari, now you're getting 14 gems. 14 gems, right? It's still, you got to play Menagerie. So increasing your gem stats, which is kind of vital for this thing, right? Like this relies on having big gems. Getting big gems when you have to play a bunch of different types, that's tough because generally what you need is like Macaw, Rylak, right? Or you need like Titus, and now Titus isn't the type. So the trinket itself feels weird because what I need to do for the trinket is opposed to what the trinket wants me to do. The trinket wants me to have 5 different types on the board and a Drakari. What I need to do is I need to increase the gem stats, which means I will not have 5 different types in a Drakari. I will likely need a Bran or a Titus, a Rylak, a Jazzer, you know, maybe the tier 7 cold war. So if I somehow get into a position where I already have big gems and then I just move into this, sure. But you can see how the strategy behind the trinket just doesn't make that much sense. Panpipes goes to +3/+3. So basically like the pirate, right? This is like having a permanent pirate on your board. Oh, it's actually better, sorry, because you cast a spell. Well, it's comparable, right? Because the pirate gets triggered for every card played, whereas this thing is only spells. However, this keeps its counter for next turn, whereas the pirate resets back to 0. So over time, the Panpipes definitely buff more, but early on the pirate buffs more. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's probably still not that good after you cast the spell. So maybe with bounties. Maybe if I already have Privateer on the board, because that's how you cast a lot of spells. Oh, well, you cast a lot of spells in combat too. Wait, hang on. Oh, this could actually be okay with Maelstrom, huh? Maelstrom casts a lot of spells, or rather makes you cast a lot of spells. And then you can even have Bran or Titus with Rylak and stuff to get more Queensguard procs. But at that point, do you really need Panpipes? Probably not. Also a bit awkward, I'm gonna be honest. Now that I'm theory crafting all of this, it's just like, it's a bit awkward. It feels like I would rather just have another greater trinket that helps me get to that setup than something that takes advantage of having the setup. This is, on the other hand, a very, very big buff. Blood Golem sticker. Whenever a friendly Quillboar dies, summon a golem with stats equal to its blood gems. And it does not have the restriction of 3 times per combat. So I love that they just looked at it and be like, what if we just remove the restriction? I feel like they're getting really, I guess, you know, creative is probably a fair use of the words, but I think there's a different word I'm looking for. I think they're willing to consider things they weren't considering before. Maybe that's like a good way to put it. Help me out in the comments. What is that word? What was that word I'm looking for, guys? But yeah, this is good because people weren't taking this, because very often when you played this with like Bristlebach, you had minions with a low amount of gems die early, and then you're like, well, by the time they get to the Bristlebach, I'm not really getting anything anymore, and the Bristlebach has all my gems, because you're gonna have like tokens with like 5 gems on a die, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, I get a 50-50 on the board or something. Not that big. But now you can have huge blood gems in the back, but also in the front, some small ones, and it will still work. So I like that a lot. Yeah, big tiger carving. I talked about how small tiger carving, I don't really see it. This is like pure just self-damage beast, right? You need to have the 5-drop that does self-damage, the dinosaur thing, and then a Titus, and it's just like... there's just giga attack to your board. It's like, it's no health though, right? You need Lasher for a lot of health, I guess. Hey, still not a fan. Great Boar sticker is a similar buff. You give 5 blood gems straight away, and you give 3/3 instead of 2/2. It's again one of those things you only take if you are very, very specifically in the kind of trouble that you need 5 gems for. It's like, if I have 5 gems, I win the game. Oh, here they are. Probably not, but yeah, super specific. Young Murkai gets nerfed. It's basically now a Murkai, right? You get your left, you get your right. Instead of just buffing all of them, which I think is fair. It was kind of BS, I'm gonna be honest. Young Murkai sticker with a board of family Murlocs, or like you get Young Murkai sticker with Magic Fin sticker when you have souvenir stand or your buttons or whatever. That was also so BS. I could just like, oh, I can buy any spell, put it on my board, put it wherever I want, put as many of them on the board as I want, and they all trigger end of turn. It was like so accommodating, I think is the word. It was just like, whatever you want. I was like, yeah, we can do it. We can do it. Like, ah, whatever you want. Like 5 battle cries on your board with a Brand of the Drakari. We can do it. It's fine. No problem. That's so much value. So I think this is a very reasonable nerf where we say, hey, what if we just like give him a Young Murkai, and then left and right most will trigger. A lot worse, don't get me wrong, might have to be even cheaper than 4, but fair, I think, to not have the previous Murkai sticker stay, because that one was just so good. Big Nomi, I mean, better than small Nomi, because at this point, at least I can, you know, commit into a type a little bit more comfortably. Turn 9, right, as opposed to turn 6. But, you know, Azerite is just better. I would rather just cast spells because I have Belinda. And as long as Belinda and Azerite are going to work the way they do, then you can't really compete with Nomi, right? Because when you have Belinda, you can generate the Arcane Absorption for free during the combat. So I can have a handful of Tavern spells. And then with Belinda, all those Tavern spells gets cast twice or 3 times if it's golden. So let's say like full decked out board is Golden Belinda, and I get 10 Arcane Absorptions per fight. I cast 30 spells start of the turn, and I haven't even bought any spells yet with an Azerite. It's like, good luck competing with that, Nomi. You can't, right? Avalanche sticker, yeah, this just doesn't make enough sense, to be honest. You need to have such a specific setup where Avalanche is really good. So you need to have Arcane Behemoth somehow. You need to have Pyramid Buddy. There's another minion, though. There's definitely something else with Avalanche that also works. Okay. Oh, Curator minion, right? If you have Avalanche with Curator minion and Mishmash, but that also requires like double greater trinkets, so it's like so specific. It's so niche, it's so specific. I'm not a huge fan of this. And then we have some buffs for the greater trinkets as well. Booty Bay Brew, Arcane Behemoth, and Fishing Rod all become cheaper. So that means you're getting Booty Bay for 0. Fishing Rod for 4. I would say out of these, I've definitely picked Fishing Rod the most, and it does feel insanely RNG right now, where paying 5 gold, that's half my turn, to maybe get Zorgira, to maybe get Sanders, and then sometimes there is a situational 7-drop that I would want, but there's a lot of trash in there where sometimes you don't really want to get the gem buffer, you don't want to get the shot buffer. Future Fin, you need to have a specific setup for that. Last One Standing is okay if you get it like at the very beginning, because it can help you win the fight, but after that it's kind of a waste. So it's a very risky trinket to buy right now. And yeah, Behemoth and Booty Bay are just not that good right now, so probably fair that you get them for free. Fairy Dragon Scale and Lava Lamp will cost 2 gold less. So Lava Lamp went from 4 minions to 5 minions, but now that's probably underperforming so much that they're going to make it just cost 1 gold. Fairy Dragon Scale I have never taken. Whenever a friendly dragon attacks, give it Divine Shield 3 times per combat. That just doesn't feel good enough to be a greater trinket. Now, I do understand there is Nightbane, and Nightbane can give higher damage, but then by the time you're attacking with your, with your stuff, you've already attacked with your Nightbane maybe, and you don't have Divine Shield on that. Now, it does work with Poets, right? That's about the only thing where you could put a Poet there, and then you can attack and give it permanent shield, and... Even 4 gold for this, I'm just not excited to take it. Then a Quartertron gets nerfed, goes to 4. I have seen some success with this. I have not really been able to take it myself, just because I don't very often have a mech board on turn 9, so I don't get this offered very often. But yeah, this is good money, and it's end of turn, so you can use your Kari with it. Probably not the worst defender, but sure, it's just like a minor slap on the wrist. And then we have our last nerf here. The egg will cost 2 more, so now you're paying 2 gold for this. This is almost guaranteed a result of the buff to Ring Bearer, where they made it quite a strong unit, and this was now the main way to get it, or one of the best ways to get it. So when they buff the thing you can get with the trinket, then the trinket gets buffed as well, of course. So now they're making it more expensive. Now we have our small recap at the end of the video. So what happened? Do we think there were good changes, bad changes, and what's going to be the effect on the meta? Overall, I think it's a great patch. We saw a lot of things adjusted. I love the approach they took with just, hey, people aren't playing it, let's just add a bunch of numbers to it, and suddenly it'll probably become viable. We had some boring trinkets removed, we had some outliers changed, so on the trinket department, big fan, I like that. I think in terms of the minions, good demon nerf. I like that they put the Wrathguard on 6. That's going to make it a lot slower, a lot harder to get demons online. Big fan of that, because it's Wrathguard controls everything. If you don't have a Wrathguard, you're probably not playing demons. No elemental nerf, other than the volcanic embers. That's probably the main thing that jumps out where I'm like, what the hell? Azurite with Belinda just goes nuclear. It's like crazy. So yeah, elementals are probably the biggest winners this patch, where like, oh, demons, you got nerfed, how bad for you? Good thing I'm not OP. So yeah, that's probably the biggest one that stands out. Pirate buffs seem a lot of fun, so I love that Rogers is back to 9, and Drust being 6/6 on golden ones. I will absolutely try playing some Drust. Stegodon is probably going to be okay. Well, okay as in, I don't think it's going to be unplayable. It might still be too strong, we'll have to see. But we should definitely try it, right? Early. Might be good for some MMR. Mechs, speaking of good for MMR, I think mechs are probably still not winning, but should be really good for top 4. So I think if you just get like 2 Zarenas or something, you're just like, okay, let me just hard commit into Zarena, go full mech, full high damage, and then hope to secure like a top 2, top 3 kind of position. And then lastly, for Murlocs, early Bream counter and Diremuck should be really nice tempo, because 5/5 per Murloc on Bream is going to win you a lot of fights. So if you can then survive and get your Burglar, now you're getting another 5/5 to the hand, and then that's going to give you another little pick-me-up, and then that should get you into the Coral, and now you can just duplicate the stats from your Bream by having Corals on the board. So that seems like that build path got a lot cleaner, a lot smoother. So yeah, I don't think it's something going to be insane, but should be a good MMR play again if you have an early Bream with a Diremuck. All right, guys, another big patch, lots of changes. As always, I'm going to be reading all the comments on these types of videos, so please let me know anything I missed, your thoughts, especially about the little segment at the end. Do you like that kind of recap? Please let me know. And as always, see you next time.